This is Determination. I'm Brian Sheehy. My guest this week is Dr. Matthew Horkey, and if there's one thing you can take away from this conversation, it's nothing great ever gets accomplished without enthusiasm. The question this week is, how does a guy from Southeast Michigan, how does a guy from the Detroit area, go on to start one of the most successful chiropractic clinics in Singapore, and then pivot from that to become one of the most influential voices in wine today? That's what this episode is all about. At the end of the interview, stick around. I'm going to provide my observations, but I want to get right to it. Here's my conversation with Dr. Matthew Horkey. So we were just chatting offline. I'm originally from the Detroit area. You're in Southeast Michigan. What's the wine scene like in the Detroit, Southeast Michigan area?
Yeah, I just moved back to the USA probably 4 years ago after being abroad for about 14 years. And I have to say, because I live very close to Ann Arbor, it's quite dynamic. It's a college town, obviously a very well-educated, very well-to-do college town. And so the Michigan wine scene is actually quite dynamic because you also have a lot of New Yorkers, a lot of people that are from Florida have places on lakes, on Lake Michigan, especially on the west side. So you literally can find almost everything there. It's not an alpha market. It's not like Miami. It's not New York. It's not Los Angeles. Not even Chicago. But you can find a lot of interesting things in this market. There's even interesting wine bars popping up in the Detroit area, even a couple in Ann Arbor, a Detroit area, an all-German wine bar, just a natural wine bar. There's a wine bar that's in an old fire station that's rated like one of the best in the USA. I go there for trade tastings often.
Okay.
So there's enough to keep people occupied here.
Okay, that's great. That feels. I probably wasn't into wine when I lived there, but that feels a lot different than maybe when I grew up.
Yeah, I was not into wine when I left Michigan. I left after university, so that was the first time. That's back 2004. I had just started drinking wine, but that was drinking supermarket wine what I could afford because I was a broke college student.
Sure.
So I was not, and when I would come back over the years, I was not connected in the industry, but I've done my best to reach out and see what Michigan has to offer when I'm here.
Yeah. So when you left college, when you got into the working world, wine was not your profession. You were a chiropractor. Can you talk a little bit how you got into that?
I saw a little film called Sideways that came out in 2004. I was my senior year at Michigan State University. I had never drank wine besides having like the grape juice at communion because I grew up Lutheran, even though I'm not a religious person. So I found it fascinating because the intellectual component behind it, and and geography. I was a geology and chemistry and pre-med major. I found that fascinating. I moved from Michigan State in 2004 to Atlanta, Georgia, where I went to chiropractic college. It's a 4-year program. And then I finished 2009. I immediately got on a plane. Literally the day after graduation, my parents came down, my family came down, saw commencement. I got on a plane and I traveled around the world until my money ran out. I set up a alternative medical camp in India. I went to Tibet, meditated with monks in Tibet. I picked up hitchhikers in New Zealand for like 7 weeks, went through Southeast Asia and landed in Southeast Asia. And that's where I started chiropractic practice in Jakarta, Indonesia, and then eventually Singapore, because Jakarta, we had some legal problems with the business, nothing we did, but it's a messy situation to do business there. So I actually got blacklisted for a few years, which I'm
oh, wow.
Thank goodness I can go back there. I set up practice in Singapore. I started with nothing. I was eating a plate of rice every day. That's pretty much all I could afford, putting on some cheap, crappy suit I got from Thailand, going to networking. And by the time I left in 2015, it was one of the busiest clinics in Southeast Asia, which was really a rewarding experience. A lot of people flying in to see me from all over the region. So that was quite an interesting thing. And I had the travel bug again in 2015. I took a sabbatical to travel around the world, which with my girlfriend at the time. And about 3 months in, I realized I was spending all my money on tasting and eating. By the time I got to Turkey, Armenia, Georgia, because those are countries I wanted to go to, that was 2015. There was not a lot of information in English around the wines of the time, especially Georgia. Georgia just about a year later just started to blow up internationally. So I wrote my first book on wine. I started blogging and doing videos about wine from obscure wine regions. That was like my calling card to start. Now I cover the entire world. I travel. This year's been a little slower, but usually I travel 50 to 60% of the year. Last year I was in South America 3 times. I went to Ukraine. I'm in Europe, all the normal European places, Eastern Europe, Oregon. I was all over the place last year. Same. I'm about to leave on Saturday, and travel season's about to hit hard. So that's it. I came back to Michigan in 2022 and I saw my parents were older. My sisters had kids. And I was like, man, I've been away for so long. So not necessarily by choice, decided to kind of plant roots back here again. Luckily, I travel enough to keep things interesting.
Well, so I want to touch on, so how I discovered your content on Instagram. I was looking at other wine videos, and then you got into my algorithm, and so now I'm seeing yours. But you were somewhere in Georgia or Montenegro or Serbia. You were in a place where, of course, they've had wine for years and years and years. But it's not a popular wine destination. It's not a place where people, you're not going to the wine store and be like, give me the Georgian wine. So yeah, how did you get to those areas? Because that's where I first discovered you, and I was like, well, this is really interesting content because it's interesting wine content, but it's coming from a place I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, I started in Eastern Europe for the most part. That's where because I love Barolo. Now I think I love Chianti Classico. I love Sangiovese more than Nebbiolo, but I was brand new. I couldn't write about the well-known regions of the world. So I started writing about obscure wine regions. I even lived in the Balkans for quite some time because I traveled. From 2015 to 2022, I traveled around the world without a home. I traveled full time around the wine world, and that's why I was doing this. And the quality of wines is outstanding. They really have a lot of characters, a lot of unique varieties, and there are some really exciting stories to be told. There's a long history of production in these countries. A lot was kind of hidden behind, especially ex-Yugoslavia when it was in the socialist times, Hungary, Romania when it was full communist times. So things were kind of hidden behind state wineries and state cooperatives. But nowadays, those industries and it's weird because it's one part of the world where consumption and producers are doing better versus the West and Western Europe, because these countries they're so patriotic and they're so excited and they're so proud of their local wines. And these, like Serbia, for instance, Serbia's Belgrade, which is a major metropolitan market, big time market, fantastic market. All the Serbian wines sell out all the time. So you don't see a lot of these wines exported. Croatian wines are fantastic, but because there's 18 million tourists and most of that is in July and August. So these wines never leave the country, on top of the voracious domestic market. Budapest in Hungary is another great example. Bucharest in Romania, where it's, one of the largest cities in Europe. And definitely, I think it's the largest in Southeastern Europe. So there's a lot to discover there, and a lot of people go over. James Suckling was just in Serbia.
He was. I saw that.
With some of my friends, all my friends, my producers, and he was quite amazed. So there's a lot of exciting things happening in all parts of the wine world. My goodness, there's 2 wineries in Myanmar. I was on a trip with the Thai Wine Association years ago, and there's like 14, 15 wineries in Thailand. About 2 to 3 are pretty darn good. There's a couple in Bali. A lot of them import rectified grape must to make wine, but some grow their own grapes. So there's exciting wines being made, all around the world.
Let's say you're in Georgia. Let's say that's where I first discovered you, but you've been there and you've filmed content from there. How are you? I can't imagine someone from the States is just showing up and knocking on their door and saying, let me do a tasting. How are you arranging that? How are you?
That was to my advantage.
How are you breaking in there?
That was to my advantage early on because I don't have it anymore, but I had quite a professional website. I was writing twice a week on that website. Now I focus strictly on video. So a lot of these producers were not getting people that are interested internationally in their wine. So they'd be letting the show. And then there's a different hospitality in these countries, the Caucasus, Eastern Europe, people are really Georgia, for instance, where guests are considered gifts from God. So people treat you super, super well. Not to say that there were tons of obstacles. I know this is the part about your podcast. There were tons of obstacles, but I really learned how to be a wine professional, I think, through Eastern Europe. And now, ironically,
Okay.
I'm going to Germany on Saturday for one of the most prestigious tastings in the country. So, it's helped me. It's kind of springboarded me into other parts of the wide world, although I still keep my finger on the pulse of Eastern Europe. I mean, I'm going to North Macedonia in October, the start of October. I was already in Croatia earlier this year. Serbia is tentative. I'm not for sure I'm going, but I think I'll be going in mid-October. So, um, it was in essence quite easy because I was quite enthusiastic. I was willing to learn. I wanted to learn. I was excited about some of the wines that these people were producing, and they kind of fed off that energy, and everything kind of snowballed. Right? Nothing great is ever accomplished without enthusiasm, right? You talk to
Right.
the kind of people that you host all the time. I mean, I can't remember one podcast I saw. They said the biggest predictor of success is enthusiasm and energy when they see people.
Sure. I could see that. Yeah. And you said you had a website when you started. I know you now your videos, you're on YouTube, Instagram, you're on all the platforms. What made you want to start doing video? And then I have to ask, as someone who's also just started into video, how cringeworthy were those first ones? I mean,
Oh,
did you?
they're still up. Everything's up. I've been doing YouTube now for over 10 years, and the first 7 years, I had no idea what I was doing. I was shooting on an iPhone 6, luckily with a good microphone. So, like the first 7
Yeah.
years, it took me 3 years to get 1,000 subscribers. I didn't really care at the time. It was just a creative outlet, but the videos were like pretty terrible. I was always fascinated with YouTube from the start. I love the history of YouTube. YouTube was originally a dating site. They just couldn't get enough people to upload to that. The first video ever uploaded on YouTube by the founders was about at the zoo and had a sexual innuendo about an elephant's trunk. So, I was fascinated. Even the mid 2000s, you find like people doing really interesting stuff. Now YouTube has evolved where the threshold of quality, the benchmark has raised quite a bit, but you still have people doing amazing things. And that's what I find fascinating. I love film. I studied film for a little while in university. I had to learn everything. So, I mean, I started with an iPhone. Nowadays on YouTube, I shoot with 3 cameras. I got 2 key lights, probably about 13 practicals in the background, 2
Oh, wow.
microphones. I shoot with all Netflix approved cinema cameras. So I've learned that by doing this over and over and over again. But I was hungry to learn how to do it, and it's fulfilling. With AI and everything like that. The one thing that AI has kind of failed on so far is video production. Even Sora closed they were producing video, and they've kind of closed their doors because it just cost too much and the video wasn't great. So, um, in some ways, I think, how is this a worthless skill to learn? But you know what? This, it's creative. At one point, probably not so much anymore, but at one point, my passion for YouTube was even a little bit more than travel and wine because I was learning so much at such a rapid pace. I think they're kind of equal now, but it is a wonderful way to express creativity.
Yeah, and for people who haven't checked you out, well, I'll put some links in the show notes. I mean, your videos are they're dramatic. There's cutaways to the label spinning as you're talking about the wine you're tasting, and it's very well. It's high quality. It's very high quality stuff.
Thank you. I'm quite inspired. I still have a lot of room to grow. Some of my favorite YouTubers are I watch a lot of cinematography or photographers. I see some YouTubers that their videos like are better or on par with stuff that's produced in Hollywood. And that's amazing now because you can do that. You could do that, even that kind of content with an iPhone if you know how to light. Really,
Right.
it's pretty incredible. But I appreciate it. It's something that I'm working better at. I wish I had a little bit more time. I'm a one-man show, so everything I do in my business goes through me and the editing, everything. I need to eventually outsource some of that, but I do take pride in that. But you get to the point where you try to put out as much as you possibly can of good quality in in a way that takes the least time possible, although it still takes a ton of time. So I would like videos to be even better, but I don't always have the time
Sure.
to do stuff that I would really like to do.
So how did you know, at what point did you know this is going to be a full-time thing for me?
Oh God, I still don't even know. Sometimes I beat my head on the table. What the heck? When people ask me, I'm one of the rare people in the media business, it's very difficult to make a living in the media side in wine. It mimics even more the discrepancy between what's happening in America and around the world. I mean, you have some of the top guys, a handful of guys, the James Sucklings, the guys at Wine Spectator, making big time money. You have basically no middle class and a huge starving lower class where they're just doing it and maybe writing or doing things to get a few free bottles or maybe hopefully get on some trips, or maybe their husband or their wife has an income. There are very few people that are doing this full time. And then journalists. I'm on journalist trips a lot of times, but journalism's not. Journalists are really struggling these days, especially print and now even online journalism with AI, how it can summarize everything. So when people ask me, "Hey, I want to get into wine," I'm always telling them, maybe you should keep wine as a hobby and keep your day job. However, I do not regret anything that I've done. I've traveled the world. I've met some wonderful people in the wine business. You talk to other people from other industries. I have lots of entrepreneur friends who are super supportive of me. Lots of friends in C-suite levels. And, you're not around, like in wine, you're around people that are happy and passionate all the time. And that kind of rubs off. That's that's a psychic source of income, right? It's not something tangible, but it's totally worth it. So yes, I am all in it. I find out like next week or in 2 weeks if I got accepted to the Master of Wine program. I did have my last year, God, 10 years into it. I had my best month and best quarter last Q4 last year. Q1 was great this year. So yeah, every time, in life, I'm sure you see this when you were consulting companies or doing everything. Maybe you think you're not doing the right thing, but if you're giving it all you got and you're putting your head down, like one brick is laid in front of you and is illuminated. So you just kind of keep going. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. It's harder making a living than building a practice from scratch, a very large chiropractic practice from scratch.
In another country.
This has been infinitely more challenging, but and both are rewarding in different ways. So yes, and especially if I find out if I'm starting the Master of Wine program in a few weeks, I'm really in it. There's like that's like burning that's totally burning the ships, and I am not going back at all.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I saw in a video once you mentioned you spend time actually working in a wine shop or working in retail wine. Is that correct?
I did that for a year just to see that side of the business.
Okay.
And I wanted to work with That's where I learned a little bit more about, because I travel so much. When I come back home to Michigan, I don't want to go out. I never eat out. I've got so many review samples sent to me. I got my own. I got thousands of bottles here in the cellar.
Right.
I never want to. I cook. I'm not a huge fan of restaurant food in America because I'm in Europe and I'm in Asia and I'm in amazing places all the time. So I don't really want to eat out that much. But I took that job to see that side of the business because I'd never worked in a restaurant. I just started writing about wine. And when you're writing about wine, you're going, all these small producers, everything's great, blah, 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 blah. But then there's a difference about what people are actually buying. I wanted to see that side of the business. And since I was pretty much overqualified for the job, they gave me carte blanche on like my schedule. Because I was like, every 2 weeks, I was like, I'm gone for a week or I'm gone for 2 weeks. And they had to find a way to work around me, which they did. I never missed a trip. I wanted to do it for 1 year, but you probably have this problem with a lot of people on your show. And maybe you're the same way. One of my good friends, he's an entrepreneur. He was the vice president of the NBA in Europe and Asia, the National Basketball Association, for years. And he had his own business in Singapore. That's where we connected. I'll see him actually 2 weeks in Portugal. And when we're sitting down he likes wine too, having a glass. And he said, Matt, problem with guys like you and I, we're unemployable. We can't work for anybody. That was the that wine retail was great, but I didn't working for somebody again after being an entrepreneur my whole life. I would probably stay there forever if they would have made it. If they would just completely just let me do whatever I wanted, but it was a great experience because
go ahead. Finish that.
There's a huge disconnect in the wine business. Obviously, it's so segmented between what most people drink and what people that communicate wine talk about and drink. And it's no different. I always compare it to hamburgers. I'm not a big burger guy, even though I make my own. But like, I haven't had McDonald's since I was 16 years old, besides the coffee. I've never eaten. I just don't like fast food. I don't like the smell. Some people love it, or some people just get it out of convenience and think that's amazing. Versus you have some, people, some of my friends are a little more foodies and would only have a $40 gourmet burger in New York.
Right.
That's like, but that's a smaller subset of people, right? Mm-hmm. Wine's the same. Usually your tastes change. You know this as well as anybody, right? I don't know how your tastes have changed, but you like different things as you get down the wine rabbit hole. So that's interesting. And it is the people that really spend up. This is a small, like less than 1% of wine drinkers, because most people don't value. Life's all about what you value, right? And to most people, it's just another beverage. It's just like a little commodity, whereas, fine wine is technically a luxury. Even in Europe, where people are like, oh no, they understand. No, most people in Europe are drinking the cheapest wine possible. And the fine wine is like a super niche. And that's what most people, you have all these people trying to communicate about fighting for a small piece of the pie. And, that's why it's difficult. I mean, that's why I focused on YouTube. I stopped writing. I was like, I can't be the best writer in the world, but can I produce the best wine videos in the world? I think it's more possible. It's like it's more achievable, something that I would like to enjoy to do. I'm not there yet, but could I do it? I think I could.
So now I have to ask, and you've posted on this, but you had a little bit of a college reunion recently. Mm-hmm. So when you're showing up to that, or you're showing up to a dinner party or an event, you're bringing a bottle of wine, I would assume, or maybe you're not. But are people like, what? People are like, what? Wait, what did Matt bring? Hold on a sec. We got to take a look at what Matt brought first.
They do and they don't. Well, first of all, you're always welcome if you bring booze, right? You're always welcome if you bring the booze. I'm always showing up. Yes, I just did a Michigan State kind of reunion. I brought probably 12 bottles because it was like 3 days we're camping over the campfire. Mm-hmm. Just drinking out of whatever. I brought good wines that I wouldn't drink too, nothing ridiculously complex. And people are like, yeah, but you really see like people, they see, like, people know, I don't know how into wine your friends are. Do you have friends that are into wine or just kind of casual?
I do. Okay. I do. Yes.
Well, with casual people usually know what a good wine is when they put it in their mouth. They usually know. It's pretty obvious. And they'll say, oh, wow. But then you just kind of go back to whatever you're eating or whatever. It's not something that you value. And I think what gets lost in wine a lot of times is it's not really about the wine itself. Only us weird geeks get into that kind of thing. But to me, the purpose of wine is really the purpose of a bottle of wine is to keep the people that you love at the dinner table just a little bit longer, keep the conversation going. And some of the best, most memorable experience with wine I've ever had have been not that wines that are super prestigious. And I have had because I am in the industry and I am a geek, I had the privilege to taste, most of the greatest wines in the world. But without the people that you want to share them with, it's exciting, but it's not great. I mean, my personal cellar, I don't know. Are you a collector? How many bottles do you keep in this?
We have a couple hundred in the house.
Okay. I have, okay. I'm still fairly young. I probably have, my personal collection, probably close to 2,000. Okay. And nothing is, I have a couple, more marquee wines, but most of it is stuff that's like $30 to $80. That's, I know is good. I know it's going to drink well. I know it's going to age well. So, people can get caught up in names and stuff like that, but really the purpose of wine is enjoyment, because it's to me the most delicious beverage on the planet. I don't know how you got into wine or what you drink, but that's That's what
Yeah,
I
I
feel.
mean, I saw him in California, and we would used to go up to Santa Barbara, and then we used to go to Paso Robles, and but then we've traveled, and so I've been to Montepulciano, I've been to Tuscany, and those areas. I've been to New Zealand, and we always would be like, well, there's a winery nearby, let's go check it out. And then we had some friends who just knew a little bit more than we did, so you just kind of learn from them and kind of follow, and you find what you like, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, these wine clubs in Santa Barbara, which are great, beautiful places and lovely, we don't, that's not what we're into anymore. We're more into this. And so you do, as you get into it, you're the kind of the path of your palate changes.
Santa Barbara County is my favorite wine region in America. I think it's not only California. I think what's produced there is just phenomenal. Like everything does well. It's phenomenal. It's more
Yeah.
laid back. You're probably what, an hour and a half away from
Yes.
Santa Barbara. So
Yes. Yes. And it's lovely. And it's lovely to go up there, and it's still an awesome spot, of course. So yeah, but we're going to Rioja in November.
oh, nice.
So we're gonna go check that area out just for a day. We'll be in San Sebastian. We're gonna pop down for a day
Oh, I'll be in
to
Bill.
Haro.
I'll be in Bilbao, and then I'm going to Rioja. I was in Rioja last November too for Rioja camp. You're going to have a blast. I don't know if you've ever been there before.
I
But
haven't.
if you're
Yeah,
stopping in Haro, you can stop by at the train station, all the main, what you can hit like 6 tasting rooms in like a
that's
couple hours.
that's what it
Uh,
looked like. Yeah, that's what it
the
looked like.
food in Haro, the tapas bars are very good. My friend lives in San Sebastian. I'm staying in Bilbao this time. It's a media trip, but I'm going to extend my trip and stay in Bilbao a few extra days, maybe even head over to Ribera del Duero. So,
Okay.
yeah, that you'll have a good time.
Oh, that's great. We'll have to side text. I'll side text you
Yeah.
some questions on where to go for sure. No, yeah, and I'm looking forward to that. So that's um, we have friends now in Portugal, and they were just here, and they brought some wine back from Portugal, and they're I think it's the Baga grape.
Yep.
Like you got to try the Baga now, and so it's like there's really no for someone like me who's like, hey, crack open a bottle of wine, I want to check it out. And for someone who's in the business, there's really no end to like what you can discover that's new, or what you can find that this is different.
There's zero end. And on top of that, there's a new vintage every single year. So the wine's different. On top of that, you have places like, I love Portugal. I'm going to eventually live there a couple months of the year someday, live a couple months there, live a couple months here. I'm going to go there in 2 weeks to see some friends. I think the wines
Hmm.
they remind me of Italy. It's awesome because there's so many unique varieties there. Like Italy, you go to places like Italy, they're super saturated. Where every region there's tons of wineries,
Yes.
and there's no way you could cover. It's impossible to literally try every type of wine produced in Italy in a lifetime. It's literally impossible. So that is what's exciting. And wine tends like hard, like when you get hardcore to it, it attracts really geeky people. Something like
Right.
watches too. I'm into watches, and watches can attract pretty geeky people. But it's fun because it's never ending learning, and I think that we're happiest as human beings when we're making progress towards something. And if we're curious, if we're always learning about something, that's when we're always happiest.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree. I got one more wine technical
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
Um, you were just talking about earlier about how most people, they have a glass of wine, they'll have it with dinner, they don't really think about it. Another thing I love about your content is you'll do a series on Costco. You'll be like, hey, this is what's in Costco. This is what I'm tasting locally at my Costco, which can be very good wines, but are also anyone can go and pick those up that day after they watch the video. Which I really like that it's like, hey, anybody can go have these right after I post this video.
I usually have to secure the wines, either buy them or I curate them through PR agencies or importers, whoever want to send things to me. I usually know, but what I do is I usually bag them up, and then I get somebody to mix them up for me. So that can be a pain in the butt because I'm a one person show. I always have to find somebody around that can mix things up with me and not screw them up. So that's
Okay.
what I'd like to. I do want to do more access. I realize that I do have to start doing much more accessible wines, much more supermarket reviews, stuff that it's funny in wine. Unlike it, What's difficult in wine, and Wine Spectator knows this, for instance. If they put Bordeaux on the cover, Napa Cab, that issue's going to sell out because people know that. And even though Bordeaux can get old, people still want to know about it. Just the top end luxury stuff, the well known stuff, or the real bottom cheap stuff. That's what like gets views, gets attention. And YouTube, at the end of the day, is a platform for entertainment. It's called YouTube. It really should be called DemTube because it's all about the audience, what they want to watch, which makes me sad in a way because I've just had to get over this, my ego on this myself. I find the most interesting wines are in the middle class. I think at 20 to $60, the prices are raising everywhere. It used to be for me like 20 to 50, maybe it's like 20 to 60. You can drink some of the most exciting, some of the best wines in the world if you know what you're looking for. If you have quite a bit moderate to really good knowledge, or you know somebody well. But you know what? Most people don't, because distribution is difficult. These wines are not like Coca-Cola. They're not available everywhere. And the difficulty in terms of having to find specialty shops, every market's different in America. It's more like 50 markets. And on top of that, the language of wine is really intimidating. That doesn't get a lot of attention, that middle class of wines. And that's unfortunate because to me, that's where the real exciting stuff is to be found. But I'm going to do more stuff at the top end and the bottom end because at the end of the day, I'm running a business. So I got to get attention. I got to get views.
And how do you do when you're rating the wines, you're using the kind of standard wine rating up to 100 points. When you're like, this is 91, this is 93, how are you defining that? How are you, it seems like obviously it's arbitrary. It's your opinion at the end of the day. But it's how does one what are the nuances that get someone up to the next level?
That's like scoring can look a little bit contrite, and maybe in a way it kind of is. I think it just comes from experience. And first of all, I tell people, you can't, wine changes so much and our neurology changes so much. Giving a wine a score is just a reflection of how that wine showed at that exact moment in time, with how your mood is and how your neurology is at that exact point in time. In general, I mean, I would love if we went to somebody said went to the 3-star system. Like 1, it's good. 2 is very good. 3, you run over your mother to get it because it gives you a little more wiggle room. Right. I judge about 6 to 8 international competitions a year. I taste anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 wines a year. So you start to get I think everybody has a good palate, but with professionals, and I actually have started to gain more respect for those top end big time names as I've gotten more into it, because you got to taste, and you have to have you have to have context. You have a Rolodex of information. Sometimes it's hard to, all right, is this wine, are we scoring it overall in terms of its quality? Or if it's Chablis, am I scoring it in Chablis? Or if it's Chardonnay, am I scoring it in the realm of California Chardonnay? When I do wine competitions, it's blind. You usually know the grape, the region, and the vintage. So that way you can compare and stack up to what your benchmarks are. So that's how I generally try to do it. I don't make the hugest. I used to not score, and then people wanted a score because I like reading scores too, because I like to, I don't always agree, but I want to see if people put their reputation on the line, basically. So I don't make it super, super serious, and also gives me just a way to give hierarchy when I am tasting wines.
Right.
So I think it's just a matter of context and experience. Anybody can actually score. Anybody could score a wine because what is it for you? Like a wine that's quote unquote a 95-point wine for me may be absolute crap to you. I mean, I'm not a big California cab guy. I'd rather, I like it. I like the Italian varieties in America. I like Oregon Pinot Noir. I like Chardonnay or Pinot Noir Syrah from Santa Barbara County. That's kind of more where I'm at. So it is completely subjective, and people have to understand that scores, even by the big names, I've tasted with a lot of the big wigs in the wine industry. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody misses things from time to time, and everybody has their own opinion.
Sure. All right. Well, we'll close on this one. One more subjective one for you.
Yeah.
You got one bottle to drink. What are you picking? If there's only maybe one for the rest of your life, I don't know, one for the rest of your life, but you got to pick one to drink. What are you picking?
Depending, so I have, let's bring it down. Okay, I'll start with 3 and whittle down to 1. I could be happy
Perfect.
for the rest of my life drinking Sangiovese, mostly Chianti Classico,
Okay.
Riesling from Germany, and it doesn't matter
Okay.
what level, dry, doesn't matter, and Champagne. If I had those 3 wines, I would be happy for the rest of my life. And if you had me to pick just one, I know it sounds boring. It would go in between Champagne and Sangiovese, and I think I'm going to pick Champagne because it's a little versatile, and if I'm on a desert island, at least I can drink that to cool myself off and quench some thirst. So that's what I would go for, Champagne.
Yeah.
It's, I joke all the time. When I was making more money when I was in private practice, I drank Champagne. There was a stretch where I drank Champagne like almost every day.
Right.
I definitely do not drink Champagne every day anymore, but that's like when I break down all my business life goals, that's like a general goal. Like I gotta get the point where I can just drink Champagne whenever I want every single day.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. That's great. That's great. Only recently have I started to enjoy champagne. For the longest time, I just was like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And then I had one bottle. I had a Paul Roger, and I was like, which is a very nice champagne. And I was like, okay, this makes sense now. And since then, I don't know what it did. I don't know how it rewired my brain. But then even lower price champagnes now, I can tolerate. It was really interesting how that happened.
No, it's funny. It's so funny. First of all, I'm going to ask what your one wine is. But for me,
Okay.
when you talk about that, when I got into wine professionally, Champagne I liked, but I never got crazy about it because I always thought it tastes the same. Until you start tasting things professionally, start tasting side by side, you start tasting aged bottles. I love aged vintage Champagne. So I can totally see, and it's not the easiest wine for a lot of people to drink. It's such high acidity. It's so sour. It's quite minerally. It's not overtly fruity. So I can see a lot of times where people just really don't enjoy the flavors of Champagne. But I think orange wine's the most versatile, but I think it's the second most versatile food pairing wine, and it can go with almost anything.
Totally.
I give orange wine a little bit of a push because orange wines actually you can have with salad and you can have with sweets just because the way the tannins and the structure are. That's just my personal opinion. What's your one wine that you could live with forever?
I honestly, like you, so 2 years ago, let's say, I would have said a Sangiovese, probably a Brunello or a Nobile de Montepulciano. But I've had some aged nice Barolos, and I would say I know those are big wines, and I don't think you could have it on a hot day in a desert island, but they hit the spot kind of every time.
They're pretty magical wines. My only problem with Nebbiolo is it's a pretty hard wine to drink on its own. The tannins are so aggressive.
Yeah.
You gotta you gotta be a masochist in a way. Like I have a cellar stocked full of Barolos and Barbarescos, and I just haven't been enjoying them as much lately. I can't even remember the last time I opened, one of my matured bottles. So, but I get it. I think if I could make it a way where I could just smell, because some Nebbiolo is one of those wines, right? You can just smell it. Like I'm just completely satisfied smelling it. That's a good call, though. A lot of people, and there's a reason why these wines are so sought after and is now quote unquote the new Burgundy.
Yeah. We had I mentioned we spent a day in Montepulciano, and it was in the fall and it was raining. And so we had like the whole town to ourselves for the most part. And the kids were bored to tears, but the couple restaurants were open and a couple wine shops were open, and there were no customers. And so we just had one of the most pleasant days ever, kind of being a tourist in what should be a jam-packed town in Italy. It was off season. So I do have some just nostalgia for that area. So when I do see a Nobile, it just takes me back to that day where we kind of had the town to ourselves. So
that's what wine does. That's great. That's the most powerful thing about wine does. And Nobile de Montepulciano is really one of the it's one of the 3 great Sangioveses of Tuscany, but it's kind of underrated. And there are some wonderful, and it's changing. The region's changing a lot, so there's a lot of wonderful, wonderful wines in that area. So that makes me happy. I did some projects there. I go to Tuscany often. So that kind of warms my heart. And Sangiovese is my favorite red wine grape. So that touches my
Yeah.
heart. That's good to hear.
All right. I'm glad we're aligned on that. We'll have to crack a bottle in person one time and talk about that. Matt, I really appreciate your time. And this has been a great chat. I will drop some links to where people can find you. Is there a website that dedicated to you, or we're just talking the YouTube, the socials?
Just YouTube at Dr. Matthew. Okay. If you look Dr. Matthew Horkey, if you put it into Google, I come up. I did buy a couple domains. I'm a one-man show, so I have not put things up yet. My old website still exists. I think it's somebody bought it. It was exoticwinetravel.com. Maybe they changed it to winetravel.com. My old articles are up there. But if you look up Dr. Matthew Horkey, everything comes up in all the socials.
Okay, fantastic. All right. Hey, thanks for your time today.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Matt, for joining us. That was the conversation. I loved it. I had so much fun having that chat. It was great. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to touch on a couple things that he said. First, that conversation could have gone on like another 2 hours. We really could have geeked out on wine. I really throttled back as best I could. And I know Matt could have talked forever about wine as well. So we did the best we could to keep this into a palatable amount of time for you to listen to. But I just love that Matt's not a typical guest on the show. There wasn't a layoff. We didn't talk about economics or anything like that around unemployment. He really forced himself into these opportunities. He created them himself. We do talk about always be building here on this show. Create your own opportunities, even inside a job. Create your own opportunities, or if you're looking for work, create your voice, share your voice. And Matt's done that. If you've checked out his content on YouTube, on Instagram, that's where I first found him. It's really well done. It's dramatic. I think I mentioned that. It's dramatic. He'll say the bottle turns slowly. It's very cool content. He talks about a lot of wines that are available. You can pick them up. I've often watched one of his reviews and then gone and grabbed a bottle of wine. And so I love his content. So I was happy to have that conversation. And what was great about it was if you look at especially the wine part of his career, he's traveling the world and he doesn't go to Sassicaia or to Scarecrow and knock on their door and say, let me write. I'm in the wine media. Let me write about your wine. Because he knows they're going to tell him to hit the road. That's for James Suckling. That's for Wine Enthusiast, Wine Spectator. I have tremendous amount of respect for all of those folks in the wine business as well. So what does he do? He goes to the Republic of Georgia. He goes to Serbia. Of course, wine has been there since, Jesus walked the earth. But in the United States, where do you find the Serbian wine? What section is that in the store? Where do you find the wine from Georgia, from Croatia? Even a German wine, let's be honest, it's not at the grocery stores. And so he finds that niche. Let me talk about great wines that nobody's talking about. It gives him access. They let him in, they treat him like family, and all of a sudden he starts building a name for himself. I thought it was really interesting too that he was writing about wine. And he says, like he said on the episode, I'm probably not going to be the best. There's some great writers here. I'm not going to be the best writer. Could I put out the best video content in the wine industry? I think there's a blue ocean there. And that's what he's set out to achieve. And I think he's done it. I think his content is really well done. Then he says, hey, these videos, they're cringeworthy. The first videos are cringeworthy. He says for 7 years, I didn't know, maybe not 7 years, but for 7 years, he's like, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm just putting videos out there. Here it is. Here's the video world. And they're all still posted. You can go on his YouTube page. You can see all of his content he's ever created. I think when you're creating content, if it's not cringeworthy in the beginning, you're not doing it right. That's what success looks like. And now his stuff is great. He shoots cinematic type reviews. Now he has all the great equipment, and then he's sitting there going, I could do better. There's more I could do. Hey, I'm a one-man band. I'm only limited to so much. So He's not anywhere near the ceiling on his content, and he knows that. At the same time, he acknowledges, I said, how do you know it's going to be a full-time thing? He's like, I don't know. Is it a full-time thing? I mean, 10 years in, and he's still like, this is really hard, but I love it, and I wouldn't change a thing. So just great eye-opening advice to people who are out there creating and who are building, or someone who maybe they have a side hustle. Just keep at it. Keep at it. You're going to grow. You're going to add to your name. Keep at it. And I think that was probably my main takeaway from it. Another thing I want to touch on, the meaning of a bottle of wine. That wasn't really the question that I asked. I didn't ask it that way, but that was the answer we got. And I thought it was just lovely. What does a bottle of wine mean? And for him, it's spending time with your loved ones, keeping everyone at the table a little bit longer, having the conversation go a little bit longer. And I just thought that was a really lovely way to put it. So, great conversation. Thanks again, Matt. I really enjoyed that one. I hope we can connect in person sometime and crack open one of those really nice bottles that you have. Determinationpod.com. That's where this show lives. That's where you can get all the information, sign up for the newsletter, listen to all past episodes. You can connect with me. We have some great episodes coming up. We are going to get a little bit back on our mission. We have some shows with people who have been laid off, have gone through the layoff and come out the other side. So I'm looking forward to those. And we also have some academics that are lined up as well. So September, October, it's already a full slate of shows, and looking forward to rolling those out for you as well. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for getting this far. Hope you have a great week, and I will talk to you next week.